So thanks to the recommendation of one of you guys, I decided to read the manhwa series known as Kill the Villainess. This series was exactly what I expected to be, and that is not a bad thing. This comic covers a lot of themes and most of them are pretty dark, so let's get talking about those themes. But before talking about those themes, it would really help out a lot if you could leave a like on this video if you find yourself liking it by the end, and maybe subscribe to the channel as well. I upload every single week, so there will always be fun content for you to watch and enjoy. Anyway, let's get back to the video. This is the first time I have read or watched an isekai series where the goal of the series is to return to the original world and not to stay in the new one. I know that is a thing that happened in a lot of older isekai series, but I haven't seen those, so this is a new experience for me and I really enjoyed it. Having an actual goal for the comic makes the story flow way better and makes the plot points and character growth stick. But yeah, this manhwa is pretty unique for the modern landscape of isekai series. With this being the major plot point of the series, they do a really good job at showing us that the main character feels trapped in another world. She doesn't feel like she can live in this world at all, and instead of trying to change her fate of dying by the end of the comic like most modern isekai do, she instead does everything in her power to die. However, she would have liked to change up the story a little bit as she didn't want to kill anyone in order for her to die. But sadly, that wasn't possible. This series does a really good job of showing the trauma that one goes through when they kill someone for the first time. Although the person she killed was someone she actively hated and was getting ready to R-word her, she still didn't want to kill him. She completely breaks down at this point and is in shock and doesn't really know how to handle it. The way this manhwa handles trauma in general, but especially in this context, is amazing and feels so real. Being lost and trapped in another world in another person's body can make you really lonely as your old life is just gone and you are thrust into this new one where you have to pretend to be someone you aren't. They do a really good job at showing us how loneliness affects all of the characters who experience it. We see some characters just give up and give into the loneliness. We see others continue to fight and do everything in their power to break free from the loneliness. Getting to see all the characters go through this kind of growth makes you really invested in where the characters are going. One of the best things this manhwa deals with is the depression these characters go through. Most of the characters have some sort of trauma they have to overcome, and each of them deals with the depression in different ways. Eris, the main character, is never really able to break free from this until the very end of the series. She struggles to get people to understand her until eventually she just stops caring. This happens pretty early on in the story, but she still struggles with the other stuff that I already talked about earlier in the video that makes her depression constantly rear its ugly head. She isn't the only one struggling though. There are other characters who have had to deal with bad childhoods that still affect their lives today. There's a lot that the characters have to go through, and seeing how each of them deal with the depression makes the characters feel very raw, and I love that. So, despite the fact that all of the characters go through a lot of struggles in this comic, the romance is really well done and feels very organic. Especially the romance between Eris and her bodyguard Anakin. This relationship develops very slowly over the course of the series. We see how at the beginning of this comic, Eris is just trying to get out of the world without trying to form any connections with the people of this world. But as time goes on and she is spending all her time around Anakin, they slowly start to grow closer to each other until it develops into a full-blown romance. The way this is handled in the story is really well done and really gets you rooting for these two the entire series, as we can tell what's going on far before the characters can. Most of the other romances in this manhwa are meh at best and fucking gross at worst. Like, one of the characters is later revealed to be Eris's half-brother, and he still wants to get with her despite her constantly telling him to fuck off and how she doesn't want anything to do with him. It is honestly really gross and makes your skin crawl when reading it, I swear. But at least the main romance is really good, so that's a plus. The ending of the series was very weird to me. On one hand, I really liked the ending, as all of the dickheads who caused problems for not only our protagonists, but also the original Eris as well, all got bad endings. So it made it really satisfying to see these guys get their just desserts. But on the other hand, I didn't really like the ending, as I wanted to see more of the real world Eris and Anakin in a relationship and stuff. That would have been awesome. Like, it was cool all of them got bad endings, but at the same time, I don't give a shit because the whole point of the series was to go back to her original world. So I would have liked to see more of that, but oh well, the ending was still good even if it wasn't exactly what I wanted. You know what is amazing though? The artwork. The artwork in this series is actually so good. There are some really good character designs in this comic. The art isn't the best I've ever seen or anything, but I think it does a lot right and makes the story work really well. There are a lot of really good panels in this manhwa that just look extremely good. So the artwork is good. That's about it. But you want to know what's even better than the artwork? Well, there are a few things, but the characters are the best part of this comic for sure. There are a lot of good interactions with the characters. Each character interacts with each other in different ways that makes each of their personalities shine through. One thing I didn't like about the characters, with the exception of one, is how they all fell in love with Eris. Like normally I don't care about that in stories, but in this case it literally doesn't make any sense to me because with the exception of Anakin, she told the rest of them to fuck off multiple times in the story. And she never showed any interest in them at all, so it really never made any sense to me. But anyway, let's actually get talking about the characters. So Eris, she is an amazing character. She puts on the facade of being a very strong-willed individual, when in reality she is just this lonely, sad individual who just wants to go home. She is someone who often tries to do things on her own until she really needs someone to help her. Anakin worked hard to shatter that facade of hers, and eventually he was able to. Anakin is a really great male lead to this story. He was able to help Eris get home, and he was able to help her be less lonely and spiteful as well. Anakin is a true gentleman throughout the story, and for that, he has my respect. The prince is an asshole. Moving on. No, but in all seriousness, he really is a piece of shit with like zero redeeming qualities. After Eris is arrested and he realizes he is going to have to kill her, for some reason, despite how he treated her throughout the entire comic, he starts to second guess himself. And I was just like, bruh, there is no fucking way that this asshole thinks that Eris is going to give a single fuck about him anymore. Like, he was being very delusional at this point in the story, and he really was just very insufferable. The priest is the worst of the main characters though. Firstly, he doesn't know how to take no for an answer. Like, Eris told him to leave her alone multiple times in the series and he never did. Plus, he is fucking gross. Like, how can you get even more insufferable after learning Eris is your sister? He should have immediately backed off the moment he learned the truth, but he didn't, and that makes him really bad. Finally, we have the Duke character. He is the least bad of the three, but he still didn't know how to leave Eris alone. But he wasn't really that insufferable in comparison to the other two. And besides Anakin, he had the most natural way of falling in love with Eris, as in the early part of the story, he was there at her lowest moments and saw her put on a strong front, and I think that is what affected him. He's still bad though. The other side characters are all pretty good. They all play pretty important roles that enhance the story a lot. Kill the Villainess was a really good read. There were some problems I had with it, like the ending not being exactly what I wanted it to be, but the story was still really fun and I had a great time reading it. So I recommend giving this series a read if you like other stuff of the same genre, and you don't mind some of the spoilers I had throughout this video.
Local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.